Today we're going to walk through the best way to burn calories when it comes to fat loss. This has to be one of the most common questions when it comes to fat loss, and for good reason. So we're going to talk about why expenditure for fat loss is so important, the best method of burning calories potentially for you when it comes to fat loss, and how to implement that into your own fat loss goal. Because you see, when it comes to fat loss, it's all about creating a calorie deficit. And a calorie deficit is taking in less calories than we are expending. So there's two sides to that equation: calories in, calories out. So when it comes to burning calories, that calorie out part of the equation, it's important and useful for us to understand how to do that effectively if you're looking for the best results for you, or what strategy of calorie expenditure is going to suit you best. However, before we get into exactly what that's going to be, let's first understand that calories in the food equation is important. We can't just forget about that or ignore it. So don't get into the thought process that you can out-train or out-exercise a poor diet. That is not going to be the case. You are going to have to control your intake as well as your expenditure. If you're interested in more videos on how to better control your intake for fat loss, then make sure you check out the other videos on my channel, because I talk about them in detail. But today we're going to talk about how best to burn calories for fat loss. So when it comes to burning calories, there's four main ways we burn calories on a daily basis. Number one is our BMR, or our basic metabolic rate. And as you can see from this image to the side, our BMR contributes to the majority of our caloric expenditure on a daily basis. So our BMR, basic metabolic rate, is all the calories we burn by just simply living. So when you're resting, when you're lying down, when you're sleeping, your body burns calories just to get the processes that require us to function and live going. Now this contributes the majority to our daily expenditure, but there's not too much we can do to really impact that or to try and get more out of that when it comes to calorie expenditure. Some people will argue building muscle mass helps because muscle burns more calories. And that isn't necessarily untrue, it's just the differences with that are slim. Now, that's not me saying don't go and build muscle. Building muscle, even small amounts, helps in various different aspects. And if it does help a tiny bit to extra expenditure, then it's probably worth doing. But my point is, in terms of our BMR, even though it contributes the most to our daily expenditure, there's not too much we can do to impact that. Then we have our TEF, or our thermic effect of food. And as you can see, this is only about a 5 to 10% impact on our caloric expenditure in comparison to our BMR, which is about 60, 70%. So the TEF, the thermic effect of food, is essentially the calories your body burns to digest and consume food. This is a small part already in terms of our daily expenditure, and we can't do too much to increase this either, other than being aware of which foods require the most caloric expenditure to consume and digest them. And that is typically protein. Protein being the highest or the most beneficial food when it comes to TEF, thermic effect of food, okay? So all that means is, if you have a protein high diet, you might be contributing a little bit more, or you will be contributing a little bit more to the amount of calories you burn on a daily basis. But just like when we spoke about muscle, we're talking about very small amounts here. Is it anything drastic? No, but a high protein diet helps in various ways, and extra expenditure is just another one of those ways. Then we have our EA, or exercise activity. So this is planned exercise. So this is going to the gym, going for a run. And again, this is only roughly about 5 to 10% of your daily expenditure. EA, exercise activity. Obviously, we can do more exercise to try and ramp the amount of calories we burn through exercise up. But again, this doesn't actually equate to much of our total caloric daily expenditure. So we have to be careful when we're doing this, because one big mistake people often find themselves doing when it comes to fat loss is trying to just ramp their exercise up very high to simply try and burn more calories. But the issue with that is exercise, depending on what form of exercise you do, it can be very taxing on the body. And if you can't recover from the exercise, that is only going to hinder you when it comes to your fat loss efforts. And we have to understand, when we're in a deficit, we're not in the best place, environment to recover. So we have to be very wary of what we can recover from. And if we just try and ramp our exercise up, we might end up burning out, feeling terrible. Hunger might increase to a level that we can't control, so maybe we end up consuming more food even though we're trying to actually increase the size of this deficit, so it might be counterproductive. So those sort of things we have to be careful of. Ramping up exercise just for the sake of burning more calories isn't really worth it. Instead, focus on your exercise for the benefits away from caloric expenditure. For example, weight training is going to be great for retention and building of muscle mass. Cardio is going to be great for aerobic fitness, anaerobic fitness, just general fitness levels and improving your ability to recover. So focus on those things rather than burning calories, even though it does contribute a little bit. And then we have our NEAT, which is our non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is all the activity you do on a day-to-day basis that isn't planned. So this is walking around the house, walking to and from shops. A lot of people like to accumulate all that into steps, and they like to track their steps to give them an idea of their NEAT. And as you can see from our NEAT, this is roughly about anywhere from like 15 to 20% of your daily expenditure. This is about double to triple the percentage of our caloric expenditure in comparison to training, exercise. This is great because it isn't as taxing as exercise. So you can really try and ramp up your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so the amount of steps you do in a day, you can try and wrap that up without it really causing a lot of complications for you in terms of recovery, hunger, taken away from your fat loss. So this can be a great way to increase your expenditure because it already plays a bigger percentage without the drawbacks. So our NEAT, or let's call it steps, contributes the most in terms of percentage after our BMR, which we can't really impact, to our daily expenditure. So it looks like that is potentially, for most people as a general rule, the best place to try and drive your expenditure up. So how can we do this, keeping it dead simple? Firstly, there's no magic step number, so set a realistic one for you. Look at where your steps maybe are right now, or the time that you spend actively walking, and then maybe try and increase that by 1,000, 2,000 steps a day, or 10 to 20 minutes. Try and stand more than you sit. So if you sit all day at work, can you maybe get a standing desk? If you're taking the phone a lot, can you walk around while you're taking the phone rather than sitting down? Park further away when you go to the shops or when you go to work. Can you walk to the shops rather than drive? And my other recommendation would be to plan these things in. The only drawback, like I said, to steps is that it can be a little bit time consuming. So maybe plan these walks in, or the time you're going to get this daily activity up. Maybe that's in the morning, after work, on your lunch break, whatever it might be. But plan these in to help you drive your expenditure up. So there you have it. That's where you burn the most calories on a daily basis, and that's where you can potentially drive your calories up further through taking advantage of that. And there's some ways that you can maybe implement it, or things to start to think about to help you really drive your expenditure up and help with your fat loss. But again, just remember, you can't out-exercise, out-train a poor diet. You do need to control your intake. It's much easier to consume food calories than it is to burn calories. So it will be very hard for you to outdo any food intake that is maybe a little bit too high or goes over your needs. So you have to control your food intake. Don't forget that. Don't try and out-train that, because if you do, no matter whatever method you try and use, you'll probably fail, you'll struggle, you'll get very frustrated, and you'll probably burn out. But our calorie expenditure does help. If you found this video helpful, please do drop a like because it helps me. If you have any questions, any thoughts, queries, throw them down in the comments. And if you haven't already, do go ahead and subscribe, because I throw out loads of videos to help you and your fat loss on this channel. All right, I'll see you on the next one.